Hey guys, what's up? This is Sean. Hope you're having an awesome day. Wanted to make a quick video just showing you guys how I would edit a photo like this in a darker, moodier style. I get people asking me all the time, hey Sean, how do you edit your photos? And I don't want to just be like, yeah, I edit with my presets every time. I want to show you guys how I do it, without the presets as well, because I want to make it accessible for everybody. So here I am in Lightroom Mobile. You can download this for free. You don't need to use any of the premium features. You can just edit some awesome photos using this app here. So I have the app open. I chose a photo and I'm going to edit this kind of in a darker, moodier style. And one thing to note is the photo is already shot in a kind of darker, moodier setting. That's how I always shoot my images, and that's going to play a big part in how your photo turns out, is the lighting condition. So I always say that's the most important thing, shooting in light that is suitable for your style. So here I shot next to a window, added some props, and I really like the light in this image. So starting things off, one of the first things I always do is I just crop the photo, straighten it. I call this the pre-editing phase, so just making sure it's kind of ready to go. So I'm going to do that, just straighten a little bit. I'm not going to crop it for Instagram at this point. If you do want to do that, you can crop it to a 4:5 aspect ratio, but I usually like to leave mine in the full length, and then I'll just crop it in Instagram. It's just easier that way. Okay, so once you have cropped the image, I always edit light first. So I'll go to light, and in this image, we want to make it darker, moodier. And actually, I think the exposure is in a good place, but I'm going to bring it just a little bit down just to kind of enhance that mood. Next thing I'm going to do is maybe drop the highlights just a tad, increase the shadows a little bit, just increases the dynamic range, pulls out a little bit of detail. I like to increase my whites. I like to have a little bit of whites clipping. So if you go up a little bit, and then if you hold the screen with your left thumb while you're scrolling on the right, you can see the screen turns black, and then there'll be little pops of color. That's basically where the highlights are being clipped, which means there's no detail in that area. So I'm going to go about there, and I'm going to do the same thing with the blacks here, right there. And the reason I like to clip them is because if you guys have ever heard of the photographer Ansel Adams, he's one of the most famous landscape photographers of all time. He said that true beauty in images, you have to have a true black point and a true white point. So that's why I do that. Okay, so back into light, I'm going to mess with the tone curve, and this is where you really make your photo unique. So I'm going to go ahead and add 4 points here, and then I'm going to drag this point down, and what that's going to do is really darken those blacks. And then once I drag this corner up, it's going to soften those blacks. So the blacks are deep, but the blacks are soft. And then I'm going to raise this one here, and added an extra point there. I'm going to raise this, and that's going to increase the highlights we have. And then I'm going to soften those highlights here. And then you can control this middle point to kind of balance things out. So I think balance it, maybe add a little bit more highlights there. You don't want to overdo it. You can really overdo it in the tone curve. So I'm going to go with that. I think that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to mess with these, and the individual RGB channels in Lightroom Mobile are super powerful. And I like to do one simple change that adds so much depth of color to the photo. I go into the red curve, add 3 points, and then I simply drag this point, bottom point, down just a little bit. I'm going to do that again so you can see the color changes we have going on here. It's adding blue into the shadows. Basically the opposite color of red, blue, into the shadows there. So I'm going to hit done. And wow, the color is already pretty nice. So there's the before, there's the after, before, after. And I'm going to go fine tune the exposure a little bit, maybe increase it just a little bit, and then reduce those highlights a little bit. Awesome. The next step is to go into color. And now we get to mess with the color of the image. The white balance, in this image, I think it's pretty good. I could warm it up a little bit, maybe just a little tiny bit. I think it adds to that kind of moody ambiance. I'm going to leave the vibrance and saturation where it is for now. I like to edit those later. I'm going to go straight into the color mix, and I'm going to go to orange, and I'm going to desaturate the orange a little bit because I think the orange on that chair is a little much. But I don't want to desaturate it too much though, because we have some orange on the top of this coffee, and I want to keep that kind of vivid. So I'm going to leave that there. After that, I'm just going to continue to mess around with the colors and find a color scheme that I like. You guys have probably seen a lot of my images. I like to desaturate my green, so I always do that. But one thing to note is when you're outside, a lot of the greens in your image are actually yellow. So I'm not going to pull too much yellow out of this image because I think it's needed here. But if there was like a lot of plants and stuff, I might pull out some of the yellows in that image. So here's the before and here's the after. So that's where we're at right now. I'm really liking this image. What can we do after that? We can head into effects. And with clarity, you can really go overboard with clarity. And I don't like to add it to a lot of my photos, but I think in this photo, it kind of adds a lot of complexity to the scene. So I'm going to add a little bit of clarity. And then also maybe just a little bit of vignetting just to kind of add to that dark and moody ambiance that we have going on here. So once again, there's the before and there's the after. And in my opinion, I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and export it. Boom, boom, boom. And you're good to go. Yeah, I hope that was helpful for you guys. It's just a short and sweet edit. If this is something you guys want to see more of, let me know. I'm more than happy to make these little tutorials. It's fun for me. I like sharing my editing style, and I like sharing mobile editing, you know, because so many of us have access to smartphones nowadays. I want to make it accessible for everybody. So hope it's helpful. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know, and I'll talk to you later. Have a great day.